So, to stain or not to stain? That is the question. A few background bits of information that are relevant. First of all, obviously X-rays, when they pass through the object that you want to scan, may be absorbed, they may be deflected, or they may pass through the sample and be measured, as it were, on the other side. And if you know how much or how many X-rays you're sending out, how many you're receiving, you can work out the attenuation. Now, the sample is affected by how thick it is and how dense it is, but also the so-called hardness of the X-rays. For instance, in clinical practice, if you're looking at mammography and you're looking for very fine calcification in the female breast, you need to have very low, soft X-rays. The next thing to know is that one of the things that's critical in the degree of attenuation of any material is its atomic number. Now, most organic tissues like carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen all have low atomic numbers. These are the numbers in red. And so they tend to have a low attenuation. Now, inside the insect, there may be other substances of higher atomic number, such as calcium, or the insect may have ingested silica, or there may be metalloproteins hardening the teeth or the ovipositor, and these have a higher atomic weight and are more radio opaque. So that is, if you like, natural differences. Now, one of the common dyes that's used for staining insects is so-called Lugol's iodine, which is just iodine, I2, dissolved in potassium iodide. And notice that the atomic number of iodine at 53 is considerably more than any of the things that would normally appear in protein or sugars, fats, etc. Now, it isn't just a question of being a bit higher. The degree of attenuation alters with the third power of the atomic number. So these stains make an enormous difference. Now, the same iodinated contrasts that you use in humans, either given orally or administered intravenously, can be used in insects, and as you'll see in a moment, they can be particularly useful in delineating the gastrointestinal tract. I'm next going to show a fruit fly which has been stained with this stain, Lugol's iodine, and I'm particularly grateful to Dr. Arensis Katsamensis. Here he is. He's from the very fine unit at Southampton. One of his interests is in so-called X-ray histology, but as he points out, that some of these stains are not only very good for diagnostic purposes, are useful for finite element analysis and microfiltration, etc. And if you want to learn a bit more about Orestes, then you could do no better than go onto his website. So this is a maximum intensity projection of one of these 3mm fruit flies. I want you to notice that the flight muscles, this is the stripy chaps shown here, are particularly well shown. Now this is a cut plane view through the middle of the insect, and you can see a lot of structural detail. You can see the brain, for instance. You can see where the gut passes through the brain, below the brain, above the subesophageal ganglion. You can see the esophagus. You can also see the so-called crop duct, and you'll see this better in a moment. Once again, very good views of the skeletal muscles. Now, the degree of staining has nothing to do with the tissue in terms of how dense it is or what it's the atomic number that we've mentioned. It's due to the propensity of the tissue to take up the iodine dye. So here we're passing through these flight muscles, and you can see we're getting figures of the order of 40,000. If we go through something like the exoskeleton, avoiding the muscle, the figures are only 15 to 20,000. Now this is not because there is the difference between the muscle and the exoskeleton. It is because the muscle is much better at taking up the iodine stain. It's perfectly good for getting a STL file of the type that we showed earlier. It's also quite good for looking at the internal structure. So one can not only look at external meshing, one can look at individual tissues which have different dielectric constants. So that's a little bit about Lugol's iodine. These stains, which as you can see have 3 iodine molecules on them and so are very radio opaque, are also very useful for staining. And I would like to just break off for a moment and show you a short video. So this is a study that we did with Professor Richard Wingate from the MRC unit at King's College. So we stained the mouse brains with the iodinated contrast for a few days, and what it does is to utilize the difference between the degree to which the white matter of the brain and the grey matter take up this stain. And I'm just going to show a short video of this. I'll just stop it there for a moment. You can make out the mouse's cerebellum and the main brain. The white is the myelinated tissues, and these are the grey matter tissues. So superb delineation of the tissues, which would not have been possible without using a stain. Let's see what this looks like when the insect ingests the dye. So you can make out the insect's head, thorax and body. This is its esophagus. This slightly fainter structure here is the crop duct. This drains into a very large crop, and here is the intestine. You'll see other views as we rotate it round. So if you wonder why a fly regurgitates lots of fluid on top of your food, it's because it has this enormous crop which it fills with water. So here is the gastrointestinal tract being delineated by the iodinated dye, hence it being white. And these are other views from other angles. So in summary, the same iodinated contrasts used in humans can be used in insects. We're not saying people shouldn't stain samples. You can get spectacular results, but as you'll see in a moment on the second of these videos, you can miss a lot of tricks by going ahead and staining without first looking.